Rufus Sewell, you play Hal Weiler on The Diplomat. Now, season one ended on a cliffhanger with Hal caught in a car bombing. How much did you know about where that would lead for the character and the story?
Very little. I mean, I had been very, very kindly told that I wasn't going to be dying, which is always nice to know at the end of the season. But beyond that, I mean, I just knew that there was, because of the story as leading up to it, I knew that there was going to be enormous repercussions, and I knew that tonally it was certainly going to affect the next part of the story, because up to then it had been, very tense and exciting story, but a lot of lightness. And straight after something like that, in which there may be, death and casualties, certainly was going to affect the tone of it, which I thought was very exciting because it was like a step up in the stakes, which is always exciting.
And certainly the explosion affected Hal. He insists he's okay a lot of the time, but he does experience the effects of PTSD from the explosion. How did you prepare for that and approach that?
Well, it's too difficult to know how to prepare for it. I mean, and what's interesting about Hal is that, he's not just being cavalier about it. He has experienced these things before. He's experienced them a lot of times. He's been in very dangerous situations. People have tried to kill him. He's been in explosions. So he's taken by surprise, I think, by it affecting him. I did a little bit of research as to what the effects were, but in the end, you've got to go with the script, because sometimes actual research can get you into a hole that makes the actual script that you have to deal with troublesome. Like I've learned from my own experience that if you really do a deep dive on a character you're playing, sometimes that doesn't correspond to what you have to do in the script, and sometimes it's very frustrating. But mainly, I take my cues and my inspiration from my instinct and from the script, and I also do whatever research I can to back that up.
And how do you think the explosion changed Hal?
That's an assumption that it did change Hal. Firstly, do I think that it changed Hal? I mean, I think that everything that happens to a person contributes to the noise that surrounds them and becomes what they see as themselves. But that's an ever-changing thing. I think it certainly affects him, but it's not like he suddenly has intimations of mortality that he had not had before, etc., blah, 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 because these are things, as I said, that he'd been through before. And the two of them have in various ways. And what is interesting is that it happens to him at a particular period in their relationship where, well, I think when these things have happened before, they have been at different stages in their relationship. And here, it's just at a point where they're just kind of on the out, even though I think there's an expectation, subconsciously or not, that because they have been through strife before and get back together again, I think he can't help but unconsciously think that this might be one of those things, And sometimes in relationships, that is the case, that what might be the end of a relationship is in fact just a change or a dip or whatever. But it's in the middle of one of those, possibly a very major one, possibly the final one. And then this explosion happens. And it throws all of the daily irritation, frustration, I'm sick of this person, this everything about this person annoys me, I want this person out of my life, suddenly evaporates in a moment like that. And you're just confronted with your fear of loss, your need for them, and that kind of elemental need to just be with someone and touch them because they're alive. And I think a lot of those problems seem to disappear. And also because the reasons for the explosion and some of the mysteries around that throw them together in a way, because there's so suddenly not many people they can trust at all. And the two of them, though, she talks a lot about not trusting him. There's this particular type of not trust that we mean. She trusts him to be Hal. And that doesn't mean that he is out for himself and cannot be trusted per se. It's just that he's a live wire, and the things that he will do for what they believe is good are unpredictable, and sometimes he will sneak around to do these good things. So they have to trust each other now. And in fact, because he is now performing for her the role that she used to perform for him, what he describes as singing backup, it means, and this was the case when Kate was doing this job for Hal back in the past, is that because she didn't have the title, there were things that she was allowed to know that were not against her job description. She couldn't be fired for knowing them. She wouldn't face a tribunal. So in this situation, Hal, because he doesn't have an official title, can be the receptacle of secrets and knowledge that she can't. So he's a very useful, in fact, vital link for her at this time. And then slowly through the course of season 2, all of the old problems, as they will, re-emerged because they didn't go away. They just got smacked into the shadows for a while. So there's a very long-winded answer for you.
Now there's a really touching scene of Hal with Kate, you know, as fireworks are going off and she's calming him down because he's experiencing that trauma. What do you remember about shooting that moment?
Honestly, I remember that in the script, it was described as quite a short, small moment. But in reality, the creep of the camera was much, much, much slower than I had anticipated. So actually what we ended up doing, and this is always the case with Kerry and I, is that we don't need to prepare what we're doing. I mean, we'll run through the lines, etc., but we don't need to plan what we're doing. I think my instinct matches for what I'm doing and for what we are doing together matches hers. So that was pretty much our response to knowing how long the camera was going to be creeping towards us. Because in the end, you just have to use your imagination. And I think out of the several takes that we did, depending on which take you would have chosen, would have been a slightly different arc of that moment. And it would have given a different impression, I think. So you never know which take is going to be chosen. And when you act like that, when you work like that, because I always like to keep it very open and be open to changes in the moment. I like to, you know, I always believe it's it's deadly to try to repeat a moment that you've managed that has come out from nowhere, to actually reject that, kill your darlings, and just see what else comes. And that sometimes might mean that really lovely things that are happening go away, but it opens the door to other things. So what I'm basically saying is that it depends which take, because it was different every time.
Now I feel like when the show started, you know, Hal seemed like he was going to be mostly an obstacle to Kate, and as time has gone on, as you've mentioned, we've gotten to see them as partners, as this kind of unit working together. Like, has anything surprised you about the way that the writers have developed that relationship?
No, I like being obstreperous in interviews like this. It's because one is often asked what surprised me about, you know, it's like a very common question to be asked. No, I mean, when you talk about the impression given or taken, rather, about Hal in the first season, that was not my feeling about Hal. So what you are beginning, or the audience is beginning to unpick, is something that, as far as we were concerned, was the story from the start. You're being given more of a chance to sit back and seek, get more perspective. As far as I was concerned, Hal's pretty much the same guy. I mean, you know, he is there for her. And it's often the case in relationships that the things that people can't stand about each other are the things that they love each other for as well. It's a very complicated mix, and you take out, you know, that's why if the way that you're being asked to change, if you actually do change, that often signifies the end of a relationship, you know, that actually everything that's wrong about them is what's also right about them. And his function is to be the naughty one that gets it, makes it all happen, because he's very, very good at his job, and he is there for her. I mean, he's there for himself as well, but he's there for them. And it's very, very genuine that he really believes in her and he sees things in her that she kind of sees, but she shies away from. He's her greatest champion. And in order to get these things done, you know, the wiler can be wily, you know. So yes, it's very interesting to hear the reactions about season 2, about people saying, "Oh, he's more like this is the way I always saw him," and it's quite. It's always interesting to see people's attitudes slowly change, because I think that the truth of that relationship and the truth of him has always been pretty much the same.
And when the story runs its course, because this relationship has had so many like major ups and downs. Do you hope that the end game is sort of Hal and Kate together, or do you think ultimately they might split apart?
I have no hopes. That's a mug's game. Um, no, and me and Kerry have talked about this before us, that I trust Deb and the writing team and the whole creature of the show so much that I'm happy with wherever it goes. And I think what's interesting about Kate and Hal as a duo, whether they're partnered or apart or warring or loving each other. I mean, all of those things are all true all the time, but depending on where they are with each other, I think that's an exciting thing for us to play, whichever way, whether there's a triangle, whether we end up splitting up and with other people, whether we're at war. I think that's fun. And I'm always a fan of problems and loss with work. Like you don't, something I always say is if your character gets a great car, it should end up in the river. Playing winners is a very boring. I mean, there's a certain type of TV where that's the kind of character, and it's for me. I've got no interest in that. I like it when things go wrong. I like it. I like it when your character doesn't know things. I don't, and but with Hal, it's very interesting because he is generally someone who knows what's going on. So I really like it when he doesn't. I really like it when he's wrong. I really like it when he loses. So no, I have no desires for specific outcomes.
Has portraying the world of politics made you look any differently at the real world of politics around us?
Not really. I mean, here again it's about the question of what have you learned, what surprises you, which are very interesting questions because it's made me think about this. Is of course, there are surprises and one likes to learn things, but really my process of working is to read something and see where are those flashes in the script that make me realize I know something that I didn't know I knew and bring that to it. It's like I'm not just here to learn, I'm here to bring a human experience into this thing and try to make it like a person, you know. So yeah, I'm learning as much as I can, but I think what's fantastic about this show is we're seeing a world that we associate with newscasts and TV shows and, the world of politics with everyone with their suits done up and a little bit of powder and presenting and speaking a certain way. And then getting to see like real scruffy people who might have just been to the bathroom before they have to do their speech, or people who, who as Deb would say, you don't know when people walk up to that podium whether they're thinking about their shoes or not, and I love the humanity of it, and it's an opportunity to use your own experience as well as learn about the world that you're coming into. I think it's really important not to think too much about the uniform that you are donning and let that dictate what you're doing, in the way that if you're not careful, an accent will make choices, unconscious choices for you. To not think too much about the costume, but always be aware of the struggling, crappy little person who's hiding inside it. And I know that's a lot of words, but I'm thinking on my feet.
Now, the series is coming back for a third season. Is there anything you can tell us about season 3? You know, what you're enjoying without obviously giving too much away.
I agree, it's impossible to really talk about anything without giving something away. It is even more surprising. I mean, it starts off so. I mean, from the end of season 2, it's, you know, as you can guess, it really, that dreadful phrase, hits the ground running. But it's very, very different. There's a different dynamic, and as I say, I love these changes in. Excuse me, changes in dynamic. There's a lot. God, I'm saying everything and nothing at the time. There's a lot going on. What can I say?
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work on the show thus far, and very much looking forward to seeing where it goes from here. Thank you so much for talking to me about it. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.